Alright guys, this video is going to compare real quick the Strike Pack Eliminator versus the Strike Pack Dominator. Let's get into the Strike Pack Dominator first. This is what most people picture, or what you see online the most when people are reviewing a Strike Pack. It's the basic Strike Pack version. I think it's $40 right now. You basically get two paddles in the back. They're really responsive. They feel really nice when you press them. And they're also magnetic. So if you want, you can take the paddles away and then store them if you're transporting them. And you have two mod buttons here. These two mod buttons are used to turn on and off mods. So if you are using like an anti-recoil mod, then you will use these buttons. Also, these buttons are used to map your paddles down here for X or Y. So you might hold this mod button and then press X on your PlayStation controller, and that will map this paddle to X so that you can use this to jump instead of, using your thumb to hit X. So that's really useful because number one, these feel really nice in your hands, and number two, you don't have to take your right thumb off the thumbstick if you're going to plan on using a jump or a, let's say, slide with circle buttons. You will be able to use your ring fingers to basically play with the paddles instead. So that's a lot more useful. Now let's move on to the Strike Pack Eliminator. This, in my opinion, is probably the better option because it has 4 actual input buttons on the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got obviously 4 mod buttons, so you can assign, an actual input like cross, circle, triangle, square. The mod buttons, once again, you can't use these as input, but you do use them to turn on and off your mods. You can also use them to assign the buttons, as I mentioned before, but you cannot use them as actual input. The other thing I will say is that while there are alternatives for the Strike Pack paddle, for basically 2 additional inputs, you can buy like a PlayStation 4 default back controller attachment for cheaper than the 40 bucks I mentioned here. You won't be able to find an attachment that gives you 4 buttons on the back, excluding the Strike Pack. So if you try to buy anything with 4 buttons in the back, you'll basically have to buy another controller. I haven't seen an attachment that simply lets you map 4 buttons other than the Eliminator here. Your options, if you want 4 buttons in the back, is to basically buy a really expensive third-party controller, such as, for example, a SCUF controller, which can run in the 200s. And this thing is, again, only $40. Both these Strike Packs are about 40 bucks. I think maybe this one's actually closer to 35 and this is 40, but that's only a fraction of the price you'd pay for a SCUF controller. And if you already have a PlayStation 4 controller or something that's suitable for you, like an Xbox controller, then why would you want to buy a whole other controller? So that is the economic argument for the Strike Pack without even talking about mods. And I personally think that just having the buttons in the back is a huge help, especially if you have all 4. You never have to take your right thumb off of the right thumbstick, which is really good for movement. It's really good to continuously be evasive while you're, hitting the input buttons back here. The only thing I would say as a recommendation to the collective mind Strike Pack makers is I wish we had a feature where you had 4 paddles, because these paddles do feel better, nicer, more responsive than the buttons back here. So if we had basically 2 more paddles that came out extended here, then I can play with my middle finger as well, and that would be, I think, the most ideal solution. I'd be willing to pay a little bit more money for it, but yeah, that's basically my review. I recommend, if you are against, let's say, using the recoil mods, that's perfectly fine. If you're against the rapid fire mods, that's fine. But you really, I think, are doing yourself a disservice if you don't use back buttons, because then you're forced to kind of put your right thumb, in this case, your right thumb will have to move away from the right thumbstick to hit these buttons here, whereas with a Strike Pack attachment, you will be using the inputs on the back. You'll never have to take your thumb off of the thumbstick. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that review. And if you did, definitely would appreciate a subscribe or a like. I will see you guys later.